Okay, we're back live.
Oh, it says recording.
And it's recorded.
And it's recording.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh, it's
Marcel. So first, let me just say, thank you for your dedication to this project.
Thanks.
I just hear crazy stories all over the place. I really don't know which is what. The petition thing is kind of interesting to me. I think that the committee should really think about doing an online petition that gets posted out there, because otherwise it's going to be interpreted potentially as being selective. It really should be available to the masses. Otherwise, they might say, well, Howard likes the farmers market people, and he went there and just gathered their signatures. You want to make this as completely transparent and available to everybody that you can.
Our concern also is that most of the online petitions are not signed by residents, and we have no way of distinguishing who's signing an online petition that really has skin in the game or doesn't. So we're trying to do it this way so that we know that we make a face-to-face contact
I
with
understand,
everybody.
I think what we can do, I gave you both loud and clear,
but
that it needs to be out there.
or you at least have to do some sort of mass media announcement that these petitions are available, and we're going to be set up here on Monday and there on Friday. You got to be completely transparent about this.
Yeah, we've just started it in the past few
Yeah.
days.
We just
Well,
did.
Yeah,
So my thoughts are, you're ahead of yourself,
yeah,
and please make this as transparent as it can be.
Yeah.
And reach out to every citizen in this town, because we don't need another situation where people are saying, well, I didn't even know about it.
yeah.
At least if you can say, I advertised it here, we advertised it there, we blasted it on social
That's a good
media.
idea.
If people don't show up to sign it, that's on them.
Right,
But you want to do everything you can to get that petition out.
thank you. It's great feedback. From both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Mike, a question about the petition. So what is the goal of the petition?
Well, there was an online petition that was vehemently against a shared use path,
Okay,
going from Schoolmaker to Bearsville. And we felt that it was full of incorrect information.
Yeah.
And we finally were able to discuss it.
The petition has been pulled
And the petition's been pulled because
because of the inaccuracies that were in it.
Yeah.
One at a time.
Also,
Because they need to understand.
yeah, the petition was recently pulled because the person who wrote it realized it was full of wrong information.
right.
There's so much
So
information.
what I want to say is and again, thank you for all the hard work that you're doing. It's clear that there's passion for it, a lot of hours, a lot of effort has gone into this. What I think is a missing piece is because you already know what you know, it's hard for you to put yourself in the position of people who don't know. And I'm just gonna say, right? So there was some sort of like, maybe not bewilderment, that's too strong of a word, that people don't get what's the DOT portion, what's the complete streets portion. What is your role as like a facilitator completely outside any recommendations that you're making, where, because you're filling in a gap, it seems, for, you know, for this to happen. Just in transparency, Leah and I are here to listen to you because we're not representing the opinions of, we're just representing just collectively a group of about 100 businesses in Woodstock who feel that up until this point, whether it's the DOT project or this project, you know, we have questions and there's some confusion, right? And it's not all on you guys, it's also DOT, the town of Woodstock. We're not sure where one begins, one ends, or where the responsibility lies in certain things happening or not happening. What is still left for discussion and what is not, because whether you sign a petition or not, in favor or against, like some things are just happening, whether you know you have an opinion about it or not. The business community is concerned, apart from the details of just during this work of the DOT project, what can be done to support the businesses? What can be done to keep people coming in? I heard some ideas about one-way streets and parking and things like that, but there may be other things. And we feel like in partnership with what everybody's doing, the business owners would like to be able to say, these are our concerns for the time period that this is happening. Again, separate from shared path, not shared path, I'm just like,
How are you doing business?
how is it gonna be communicated to the public? You know, where's the wayfaring piece? Are there temporary things that are gonna be happening at important intersections? There's like three ways in, like, are we gonna change things to have people come in? Could we potentially use the parking lot at Woodstock Elementary School and have a shuttle, you know? Can we take away the $10 fee for parking during this period of time? Because like, so, you know, the thought is that these projects coincide with those times of the year for which our businesses rely on to get us through the entire year. And there's a little bit of a concern about, we are not clear as to what's happening in front of our stores versus what's happening to the side streets, but mostly, how can we together, everybody, help the Department of Transportation understand that there is a true need for businesses to have things done in a certain way that are least disruptive, that they might not consider because they just have a job to do.
Do you represent these 100 businesses? Are you able
Not
to speak?
representing them in terms of, we haven't gotten together and come up with what we
It's
thought.
a hugely important question what you're asking.
Yeah.
So everything we've worked on so far is, so DOT, we know, we've been talking, DOT is gonna come and do this project.
Yeah.
What we've been advocating for are safe features within the project, within the same footprint of what DOT is gonna do. So the town presented this plan just last week to DOT, what the town wants within the project, within the scope of the project. The supervisor's gonna be reaching out to them now to find out when will they,
When they're gonna
Confirm
respond
that.
to these.
Yeah.
they might look at this and throw it all out and say, we're still doing what we showed you 4 years ago. And that's what we're gonna do.
Right, but your
But
point.
I wanna get, I was just gonna say, the project is due to go out to bid for contract for work in February 1st of 2027.
That's right.
And then there's 1 month for those bids to come in,
And then they're gonna
and then
start.
there's 1 month for that work to start. So your timing is actually very good.
Yeah.
Because we're gonna be waiting for a meeting now with DOT to discuss what we've asked for in the plan and what they're gonna give us back. So we'll all be there and we'll be running, that meeting will be a rules meeting. But this is the next thing, because they're gonna do the work anyway, but
Yeah.
you're not late, you're actually,
Yeah.
timing is perfect. Because one thing we can ask now to DOT is, we need to sit down with the business community so you guys can navigate.
And
this.
So we're trying to facilitate
You need
that,
to
right? So
navigate
rather than
this,
you
yeah.
having to like walk into every single business,
No, there
we
needs
were
to-
trying to say, let's at least come together, get our contact information,
Yeah.
that we would like to have. We would like for you to present to us, and we wanna talk to the town and also DOT if possible, just so we feel like we're being heard. And in that petition,
It's important.
businesses was not it's not a wording in
This
there.
petition
This
is
petition
west.
is to the west.
Is to the west of the post office.
Right, so let me just say that what happens west, even though it doesn't directly affect us in front of it, affects just traffic flow, right,
Yeah.
through town. And so, which is again our goal, and even if it weren't for this project or these projects, you know, we as a business community would love to be able to be proactive to get people to come that wanna visit us and shop with us and keep them, you know, once they're here, you know, stay here, so.
Let me ask you, what does a meeting with DOT look like to you? Is it having one representative from the business community, or is it an open forum for
We would
business
like for
owners?
them to present to
To business
a body
owners.
of businesses.
That's a great
We
idea.
all are, I mean, you know, maybe it seems obvious, but like, you know, and thank you for your exceptional volunteer work, but like, we have our hands full running our businesses, right? So for us to be able to get together, let's say on a Tuesday morning at 8 AM, you know, that is a time when then there's the most bang for their buck, whether it's meeting with the town or meeting with, you know, the DOT or meeting with you guys, so that we understand, again, what's a done deal, what's still up for discussion, and an opportunity for you to, you know, sort of address those misconceptions. It must be very frustrating for people to think that they know what's happening, and then people comment on what they think is happening, and we just wanted to be like, let's find out what is happening and understand it, and then all of us together go to the DOT and say, listen, we know you're doing this, but there's certain things you could do. One of the things Leah and I spoke to Mark about at the meeting that you had at the community center was saying, if you are going to do, let's just say, the sidewalk piece, can you do that like in April or the very first thing? So you're not working in front of our stores in June, July, August, so we don't have, like, we closed down for 1 week during that time and it's devastating.
Yeah.
And he seemed to be surprised that we were such a seasonal town from a business perspective. And that's when we thought, wait a second.
Nobody's speaking on it.
Yeah.
No, it's great, you're speaking
Yeah,
out,
it
this
was
is
Yeah.
great thing. Laura had something.
Well, I just want to say, the one thing I will say, and you raised an excellent point about the sidewalks, and my understanding, and Howard, you raised, anybody's been in the meetings, can correct me if I'm wrong, but what I've heard in the meetings, at least, I mean, there was some discussion of, do we actually close down both lanes for a period of time? And the answer is no, they're not gonna close down both lanes. My understanding is, last I heard, is that there will be one lane open at all times. And what I believe I heard is that they'll start at a certain point, you know, they'll do a chunk, they'll do a chunk, they'll do a chunk. I don't know if we can get a schedule of what chunk you're gonna do when. And I know from construction, in a perfect world, we'd be doing what you're saying. In the real world, I believe they're gonna start at one spot and do a chunk and then do a chunk, but one lane at a time, so at least cars can go through at all times. But you raised an excellent point of what weeks is your sidewalk gonna get torn up? Because they're definitely doing sidewalk work, they're gonna make them ADA compliant. And
then what is gonna happen at the main intersection, 375 and 212, that people come in, right? What can we add to that?
well, nothing there, because it's not going.
I know that they're not doing construction, what I'm saying is, given the construction and the backup and the chunks and the one way.
Sure.
Going back to like, if people feel like they can't get into it, if they're starting their wait to get into Woodstock, past the elementary school, they're gonna bypass the town. So why, or they potentially would, nobody do that if you're listening.
Yes.
But what can we do to facilitate traffic at the intersection of 375 and 212, where you're not just waiting on the kindness of people on the go and the, like, is it a light? I forgot all the initials for the blinking light. Is it a person? You know, that wouldn't be equal, because we need to keep people on 375 moving. And this is something that someone else came up with, I thought it was brilliant, not me, but what if that one lane was just one way? And then you never have to stop and wait, and what if you change the traffic pattern so there's one way in and one way out, and it's a loop?
That's a good idea.
There's different things to think about, I'm saying, and we're just petrified that if we make it too easy for, you know, or too difficult for people to get in, they don't even get a chance to figure out where the parking is, because they don't even, then they're like, you know what? The last time I tried to get into Woodstock, I was at the beginning of the golf course on 375, I'm not doing
But I do that anyway, I come here I live in Xena, and I have been behind the.
It's already tough.
I have been beyond the elementary school
Yeah.
for some things, you know, so
So
I'm.
look at what happened when they closed Tannery Brook Bridge, that one little detour, getting rid of that.
It's
created-
carrying way back to
Yeah.
Magnet Knowles.
I think Kevin.
I think we know what we have to do to support the questions.
Yeah, I just really appreciate that you've congregated with other business owners
Yeah.
and that you've come here and spoken, because what you're saying is truly, truly important. This project is happening, and there's 4 bridges that are gonna be replaced. That's the core of the project. That's why it's $30 million.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, because of the controversy and the misinformation and the social media storm, there's been a lot of energy and time that has had to get devoted to disabusing people of what the project is not and getting really clear. And at the same time, the town board and the supervisor over an election transition are having to interface with DOT. It's complicated. So I feel, as Howard and Grace have said, we're very close, like the town's formal request has gone in now. This is what the town, these are the requests the town had for things to be incorporated into the project.
Have you received the grants?
And
This is not a grant.
This is
Okay.
not, this is the brand new.
Oh, this is the DOT, this is the
$30 million.
town's plan for the DOT
DOT.
project.
$30 million for fully funded.
Okay,
So now, I wish it had happened sooner with the businesses, because this is the lifeblood of the town, right?
Yeah.
And people moving people through the community and allowing people to be able to get to businesses. Parking is gonna be, this is gonna be kind of a nightmare for the town, and we've all seen it in other communities, right? When these projects happen, they are incredibly disruptive.
Yeah.
So now is a really good time to start, and I just really hope that you will continue to show up and you've come up with some really great suggestions.
we feel
already.
really
So we've got
positive.
some
Yeah.
things
This is
that
all, no, this is perfect.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
This
so
is really good.
everybody we
because-
met with, they're not against any of the improvements, we want a better infrastructure,
Yeah.
foundation, welcoming, and we feel that we could do it better, because we've seen towns collapse with things like this. But that's why we wanna work with you, the DOT, the town.
Thank you for
And
bringing
think
this
there
to
and
us.
think outside the box, how can we do it
So-
better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the
And
one
we
way,
wanna
like
see
making
everything.
all the parking available,
Timing is
making it
good.
clean.
And the things that are interrelated, for example, we're open until 8 o'clock, and in the winter time, that means that from 5 to 8, it's really dark, so people wanna be able to park in front, and if they park behind us, is there lighting? So like lighting
We
is,
heard you.
We requested that.
you know that.
We heard
Feel
you.
about that.
No, we've spoken to DOT.
So like, those are things that are not part of like,
Yeah.
they're outside of, what kind of path and what kind of, or the bridges. It's like, what can we do to, like, imagine yourself coming to town and shopping and being around town, and then how do we facilitate that? And then all of us working together because we do need to be open during this. We can't close for 2 summers, we won't make it. And that could be completely
Yeah,
devastating.
Yeah, we've asked for bridges, like, are they gonna put bridges for people to access your stores, just physically accessing that?
Yeah.
And that one they're coming through, so the timing, I think, is actually great. Because now, it's coming into focus, the project scope, and now we're absolutely, thank you so much for
And
asking the
I think
questions.
that also getting together
Yeah.
all those ideas, I mean, I love the idea of it being one way circulating thing.
Like I said, not my idea, but when I heard that, I was like,
It makes
okay,
so much sense.
Yeah,
It makes
well,
so much sense.
we can float it all to DOT, and having a meeting to business owners,
I
I
think
think
that's
is
great.
brilliant.
Yeah.
And it's the right time to ask for it, we can ask Supervisor Laura, to.
Well, I think it's a great, I think
Yeah.
it's a great idea. Well, and say that you'll wanna know, because if they can have a schedule, so at least you'll know when your disruption's gonna happen in front of the store.
Yeah,
And what will the disruption be? So.
we asked everybody what their top 3 concerns with are, and we compiled a list, and we plan on presenting that at the next town board. And
Oh.
Wonderful.
One sort of like, here's our situation,
Okay,
right,
because we're gonna need to like, it's sort of we need to go to DOT and be like, guess what, this is not happening in a vacuum, and here's what needs to happen, because, and if you wanna move on to the next fun project, which I heard you talk about, for the DOT, they have to finish this before they do the next thing. At least there's some incentive, be like, listen, you don't get the dessert, finish.
well, this is on their schedule, they have a schedule for this. And the schedule. is
And we would
always
like to know the
posted.
schedule, like,
We wanna know the
No,
schedule
the schedule,
also.
we only know the beginning and
We only
end,
know the beginning and end.
but we've been asking, are you starting, if it was green, are you starting?
Okay, so we're gonna, so our mass and influence
Yeah,
as much as it is. Well, hopefully, these are the questions, and I would imagine that I don't know how a DOT works, but I'm sure that they do their job unless otherwise asked for. They're not gonna be the ones to bring it up. So like, but if we are saying to them, with the
Exactly,
help
we
of
have
the
to
town, like,
We need
We- yeah,
representation.
we do.
yes, loud and clear, thank you.
Representation
Yeah,
with the town,
With
with
the town.
DOT, and to the extent possible in this lovely little community of ours, we need to speak with one voice.
Mhm.
Because that's what's going to be the difference in a lot of cases, whether DOT will agree to do something that might be less convenient for their project,
Yes.
but it makes a huge difference for the lifeblood of the town.
and we recognize that
Yeah.
some of these things are controversial. We see the same posts that you do. And some of those things, it will be impossible to get people to agree on. However, what's happening is this, it's a fact that the businesses need to have to bring people in order to survive. The prosperity, the economic prosperity of Woodstock is very much tied to the impact of independent businesses that provide the tax base. It's all interrelated. So certain things can be discussed in other forums, but we were trying to figure out a way to at least figure out like
got it.
this stuff.
I have a suggestion.
Yeah,
I think we need the assistance of our county transportation planners and the county planning department.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
this has happened in every municipality in Ulster County. It's not a new thing. DOT's been through it plenty of times.
yeah,
Ulster County has seen it happen in various municipalities. And I think we should ask Lindsay for suggestions as well from other municipalities where
she's a
she's
little
worked.
hooked up a lot, but we should have it come from Manila.
Yeah.
But I think first it would be really helpful to get a lot of these
And your
ideas.
input,
Yeah.
we
Get
really
these
need to
down.
hear what. you're
Actually,
saying.
yeah, so I was talking about this with Marge Gallagher, and she said that there are resources at Ulster County, like the planning department,
The transportation.
tourism, transportation, that we need to engage them to
Maybe-
help us
maybe
get through
even-
this.
I shouldn't even say it, UCAP, maybe.
We,
If
Yeah,
we
parking
could
at
move,
Woodstock.
if we have a place, I don't know if we.
whatever, we have,
Parking-
we have,
parking-
everything,
parking is really
everything
tough.
should be on the table.
Parking is very tough, auxiliary satellite parking, very difficult.
And
to
keeping the
work.
parking that we already have, I know there's a housing committee a building, I don't know when those dates are, but I would hope that we pushed,
What dates?
If Mountain View were to be chosen.
We need
for
that
instance.
very
After, like, after
like
this.
build after
After.
2030, because we need,
Yeah,
Parking.
well, I mean, that's being considered, but we're just getting information now, there's been no
Yes.
town board decision. But I do want to look back to one thing. So you mentioned you're coming to the town board meeting, there's one on June 2nd, there's one on June 9th. There's two ways to present, you said you want to present to the town board. There's two ways to present. One way is, if you speak at the end and public be heard, you get 3 minutes. And the town board does not respond back, the town board just listens. If you have a presentation and you want to be on the agenda, that would be a NULA putting you on the agenda for presentation. So if you want to have a presentation, that's.
We don't have a presentation until we've heard from you guys, DOT, and the town. What we have is raising our concerns where we felt like for June 2nd, it would be about, entering, here's our letter, here's who we represent, and then having those meetings in place, then processing it, and then saying, okay,
Okay,
You know, here's what we
okay, so June 2nd, you're happy to do publicly heard in your 3 minutes, it sounds like.
right?
Okay, and you'll leave it here.
Or we could
Definitely
come up with a presentation.
By
What
June
she said.
2nd, but here's the thing, it's not, okay, so maybe it is a presentation, but let's be honest, we are
The
not,
presentation could just be your letter,
okay, so thank you for
but
clarifying
you'll
that.
have more than 3 minutes.
Okay.
You'll have enough time and you'll have an opportunity to.
Okay. I think
Yeah,
what
Maybe
is
every 3
interesting that
minutes
we were
and you went
presenting,
way over.
right?
Just think about that. You want to be heard.
But it sounds
Yeah.
like, it's not to a NULA, but yeah, she'll want.
Right, we didn't know if there was enough time to actually get on the
But
agenda.
if you have your
Yeah,
letter.
no, you should be on the
But
agenda.
but your letter complied better, be better than 3 notes, so I'm guessing. So you could just share your concern, which will be documented in your letter, and when people come and do that, they tend to, 6 copies is a good thing, and actually 7 is even better, because there's 5 town board members and 1 clerk. So if you bring a letter, if you do it in 3 minutes, because, like you say, my gut feel is you don't really have a real presentation, but you wanna present your concerns, which you can probably do
We
in
have
3
3
minutes.
minutes worth of initial concerns without being fully informed.
Right.
We don't wanna be like, and here's how we feel as a group, because A, we don't know, and B, we recognize from the very beginning, and Leanne and I had said this, like, I don't wanna become an expert on this, this is not, I don't want, that's not my bandwidth, but I don't like organizing, but we don't wanna speak to things unless we know, what can we impact and what can we not impact, it's not where there's time.
Their time.
Correct.
Or
Do you want us to do some legwork between now and when you might present and see what we can find out for you?
Yes.
So we
Yeah, I
can
mean-
talk to the supervisor, we can talk about.
I think that something that
different
might be
parties.
helpful, not just for us, but for everyone concerned,
Mhm.
is this is what's happening no matter what. This is what's still being worked on. And this is what is under the jurisdiction of DOT, and this is what's under the jurisdiction of Complete Streets. If people were understood those things, they would stop grouping it all, they wouldn't stop, but like, they might be less likely to group it all together, right?
Well, like, stay in your lane.
Because you're sort of like, you're one-way lane. Because there's arguments that are happening that don't even have, like, to your point, like an informed premise. So, I think that, people to understand, like, you may feel one way or another, but the bridges are happening, the bridges need work, so, but how it happens and how we come together to make sure that the town can not only survive during this time, but what if we also thrive during this time and make it work for us and,
I just keep on hearing a presentation.
okay.
I'm sorry, I hear more than the public we heard,
Okay.
because I think this is a monumentally important issue
I agree.
for all of your survival and the survival of the whole town. It is not something that is, an aside.
We haven't had the time to be able to take what we're saying, then bring it back to our group and say, do you guys all agree with what we're saying? Like, so we haven't had, like, it would be.
It'll be, like, I think we should still try to get, and then at least it'd be a little bit of a discussion, and then we come to the
There's
Okay.
questions that need to
So
be
maybe it's,
answered.
I'm thinking of it wrong, it's more like, let the businesses be heard a little bit longer than the public for a minute.
Yes.
But I think that your presentation can be a list of questions that need to
Okay.
be answered,
Perfect,
okay?
we have that.
You have, and they're substantial questions, because they're questions about how this town is gonna survive this project.
I think it would be good to
And
have,
everybody needs to hear that.
it would be good to have the other business owners in the room too.
Yeah, how many?
Well, that's what we're
businesses-
trying to, what's
And
that?
how many businesses you represent?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what we're trying to organize, and again, it is hard on any given night for business, like Tuesdays, we have a little bit of a better shot. Like we had one meeting and it was at 8 AM and Tuesday, and it was still 30 out of 100, so like, we're doing our best, but like, that's what's so
We
cool
got
about
our
our town.
graduation.
Is that, it's a lot, but we'll do our best to have the numbers that we need, and so that you guys / towns can go to DOT and be like, this is what's gonna happen, and we have there's little teeny questions, like, it's a weekend, something happens, who's the liaison between what's happening in all the businesses, what do we tell our customers, because customers ask us questions that we all kind of have to know, just in the same way that we should know about other businesses when they ask us for recommendations.
Mhm.
They're gonna ask us, like, what's the best way to do this, and we are that connection between the visitors and the town, and we wanna be informed and
Awesome.
keep it positive.
This is great, thank you so much
That's wonderful.
for coming and
We
speaking.
wanna see that.
We wanna see that, and we have a bunch of questions for you down the road also, like
Okay.
how, once you get the grant, how much longer will the projects
Right.
be, and,
We're open to any conversation.
Yep.
So if I come in and see you put on cap.
I know, but I'm never in the right mindset for
I
that.
know
one.
that, but if you want to establish some way that it's easier and have maybe some, people lead the communication, like if it's yourselves or bookstore, you know.
Yeah.
It'd be great. There's a lot of great business owners who might want, just let us know what that looks like, and we can work with them.
And,
And see how to communicate.
we wanna apologize also for what you don't know. And explain that we didn't know.
Yeah,
All of this has come to us fairly piecemeal. There's been presentation by DOT and then no communication for almost a year and a half.
It goes into
or
a
2
black
years.
box.
wow. Just hearing that the town didn't know about the Tannery Brook project until 2 weeks before it started was
Scary,
It's scary.
interesting.
yeah, not good.
But there is one more thing I do wanna say, it is, I don't think it, you know, if we get the grant for the post, not this piece, but the Woodstock Post Office out in Marysville, if we get the grant to that, I'm not envisioning that to be a big traffic tie-up, because that will be putting the path not on the road, it'll be off the road. So the tie-up is gonna be the tear up of the road.
This one.
Yeah, but this is gonna tear up the roads and
Yeah.
the sidewalks and the bridges.
Yeah.
This will tear it up. I don't foresee, correct me if I'm wrong, because this team knows better than me, but I don't see, if we do get the grant and do the post to post with the shared path, it's gonna be off of the road, so I don't see that as a big traffic tie.
I think the questions have to do
I'm
with
not so sure.
what parking spots, if any, are gonna be taken away in front of our businesses?
Can we come
And is there a pattern, so that's what we wanna know.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then where do people park?
Yes, that's what we're hoping.
And how do they-
So
If
And
it's the
how do
case,
they
and
get
like,
to the
it can, and is it already a done deal, or can we say we really can't afford to do that? So
You know, to not have parking on the main streets, which we hear, that's one of the big things, there's not gonna be any parking, it's just gonna be a bike lane through. And we were like, okay, so should we close?
I'm sorry, I
So
forgot
like,
your name.
Linda, Linda, Linda Tiana.
Had the same thing about
It's too much, for you to personally be responsible for changing everybody's mind and to try to not only give information, but disavow them on misinformation. It's too much for one person, it's too much. So let's, you know, have this whole idea, maybe the Garden Cafe.
Oh, I didn't know that. I just don't recognize the other.
The healthy garden path.
I'm more open, and of course, I feel like you since you guys speak
Can we walk the,
Yes.
can we walk the, let me walk you.
Yes.
Hey guys, I think you're gonna adjourn the meeting and chit chat.
Yeah.
It's still part of the
Can I
meeting.
ask?
But your meeting's still going on.
Laura has a suggestion.
Let's have one.
Our time's up.
Yeah.
So we can stop the Zoom,
Yeah.
but we can walk the four of you. We're happy to stay and walk the four of you. Is everyone?
Yeah.
Adjourn the meeting?
Adjourn the
Okay.
meeting.
Let me
This
adjourn.
meeting is hereby adjourned.
Okay, thank you.